Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. It's the Hurling preview show. We're going to be looking ahead to the weekend's hurling action and the weekend's football action. We'll be looking at the football action a little bit later on. We'll be starting with the hurling action. Obviously, some big games taking place this weekend. You have Tipperary against Cork, you have Waterford against Clare, and of course in Leinster as well, which I suppose the championship in Leinster very much almost more exciting than Munster at the moment in many ways, the way things are shaping up there. Dublin are playing Kilkenny. You have Carlow against Wexford and Antrim versus Galway. We'll be looking at some of the games in the Joe McDonagh, Christy Ring, and some of the lower tiers as well. And obviously, we'll be focusing in on the football a little bit later on. I suppose, firstly, I do want to say thanks to anyone who's tuning in, commenting, subscribing, all that stuff. We did recently hit the 5,000 subscriber mark, so quite the achievement, and do appreciate anyone who does tune into the videos and everything else. And if you do have any questions or anything like that, we'll be doing a bit of a Q&A maybe in a few weeks. Feel free to get them in the comment section once the video has finished. Joined here by Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman podcast to preview the weekend's games. Matthew, how's things? I suppose, as we were saying off air, Cork are alive and well.
Yeah, hopefully so. And thanks for having me on again, Aaron. And congratulations on hitting the 5K mark before we get into it. But a few things, like in fairness, this weekend, looking at the list and everything for your podcast and my podcast, I'm going with Jason Keelan for the Loaf of Bread tomorrow night. Tune in to that just to let you know. But I looked at the amount of games. There's a lot of them. Jesus, and there's a lot of them not even being shown. Like in football, there's 4 games in the All-Ireland. There's about 8 in the Tailteann Cup as well, so that's 12 games. And then you have the under-20 final as well with Tyrone and Kerry. That's going in under the radar. You have every competition in hurling. So it's nearly every team that are playing in football and hurling. And I don't think even half of them are not even shown on TV or GAGO, which is quite disappointing. But I suppose that's another discussion for another day. But yeah, there's quite a lot of action, including from Cork as well, obviously up against Tipperary. Really important game for Cork in general. The Cork footballers as well up against Clare. Hopefully they can bring some life to Cork football, considering the Miners got absolutely slaughtered on Monday night by Kerry, and that was a horrendous experience, I have to say, in Páirc Uí Rinn. But hopefully the hurlers and the footballers do justice and win this weekend. And there's a lot of narratives around this weekend as well. If you look at the Leinster Championship in particular, Dublin, they could make themselves, over the hills and far away from Kilkenny if they beat them in Parallel Park this weekend. You have Antrim. Could they provide another upset against Galway? Carlow, despite a brilliant result against Kilkenny last weekend, there is a scenario where they could get relegated this weekend too. So watch out for that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to get through, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there is so much to get through, in fairness. And plenty of comments flying in here. Says Fel says happy Cork lad this evening. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you certainly are after the game on Saturday. Keane says Dublin have a great chance of beating the Cats on Saturday. Hopefully they can pull it off. Playing at home at Parnell Park is a huge plus for the Dubs. Yeah, I will be at that game. Really looking forward to it. I think it's sold out now as well, from what I've heard. So yeah, I think it's going to be an absolute cracker, and we'll certainly get onto that a little bit later on. And Keane says nobody gave Waterford a chance in this year's Munster Championship, but they have been great so far, and I expect them to be clear and go marching on. Jamie Barron has been in exceptional form. Yeah, look, he certainly has been. And yeah, look, I mean, the way the championship is going, like I don't think anything is a sure thing, in all honesty. So it is absolutely wide open, in fairness. We'll start with the 2 games in Munster, and I suppose we'll start by looking at the league table, or the Munster Hurling Championship table. First of all, just to remind ourselves as to how things are going. So images on the screen are provided by @GA League Table, so make sure to check them out on Twitter, Instagram, and everything else when you get a chance. So Limerick are sitting on top there with 4 points so far from 3 games. Waterford are second with 3 points. Clare and Cork are both there with 2 points, and Tipperary are there with a point. Of course, Cork and Limerick have both played 3 matches each, and Cork's game this weekend will be their final game of the Munster Hurling Championship. I suppose before we do crack on with the Tipperary game, I suppose I do have to ask you about the Limerick game first of all. As you were saying obviously you weren't at the game, but in general, like a massive win that for Cork. And I suppose, like, how does it feel knowing that there's so much on the line in this game? Because at one point, like, it looked like that this Tipperary Cork game would be a dead rubber.
And that's the main thing out of all this this Limerick debacle. And when Seamus Flanagan got the hat trick, and especially when Aidan O'Connor got that point, I was like, yeah, that's it. Pack the bags, lads. We're not getting into the All-Ireland series or the Munster final or whatever. But Shane Kingston just got the ball and ran, and Kyle Hayes dragged them down. Patrick Horgan converts that penalty. And as well as that, I was listening actually to the big red bench Red FM, and Ger McCarthy from he's a brilliant freelance journalist. Check him out on Twitter and Instagram if you haven't already. Made a very good point on, even after the Patrick Horgan penalty, Cork won a free on the south stand side in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and Patrick Horgan, instead of actually going for glory and going for the point and potentially dropping the ball short of Nicky Quaid and allowing Limerick an opportunity to equalise and potentially putting Cork in a perilous situation again this weekend against Tipp, Patrick Horgan does a smart thing, passes it to Brian Hayes, and he puts it over the bar. That was a crucial moment as well. And I actually didn't realise that until Joe actually mentioned it on Red FM last weekend. So yeah, it was a crucial moment, and it was big for the Cork crowd to have that moment, to beat Limerick. And that's the thing, when a lot of people would say Limerick weren't at their best, but they weren't at their worst either. They had a 78% shot accuracy. They were really, really good in this game. Cork had 77%, and they had to perform well as well. But it just shows you how good you have to be to beat this Limerick side. And Cork were absolutely exceptional. I have to take my hat off to basically the whole team. Ethan Toomey in midfield was outstanding. You look at Patrick Horgan, you look at Shane Barrett, they all put their bodies on the line. They got over the line in the end. But there is the caveat, and I'm sure we'll get into this game in detail in a sec. If we do not beat Tipperary this weekend, that result against Limerick last weekend will be all for nothing. So it's a crucial one in Thurles this weekend for the Cork players.
It absolutely is. In fairness, Fell says the Cork lads just hoovered up everything in the last 5 minutes, tapped off by an excellent pen by Hoggy. I thought we had you fair play. Yeah, look, I mean, in fairness, it could be a massive turning point though for Cork as well. And how many times have we saw that in the championship down the years? Like even back to Limerick in 2018, I remember when they got that win versus Kilkenny, you felt like that was such a huge turning point in the context of the season. And even when they beat yourselves as well, like coming back the way they did in that All-Ireland semi-final. Not saying that this is necessarily the same, because this obviously wasn't a knockout game, and Limerick aren't going anywhere. We know that. Like they're probably still going to be in a Munster final and make a good crack at an All-Ireland, if not win it. But from a Cork perspective, like, it does feel like a massive turning point. But as you said, need to get through this weekend, first of all.
Absolutely. And that's the key for this Cork team as well. But Tipperary will be thinking the exact same thing. And even look at the math for this game. The loser is out of Championship 2024. A draw would eliminate Cork, but for Tipperary, it would still keep them in it, but they'll be hanging on thin ice. That's the thing. So, like, it's a win or bust for both sides. And why the media might have turned their attention to Cork, and yeah, rightly so, because of being on the edge last week after Seamus Flanagan's hat-trick and Aidan O'Connor's point. Cork were on the edge of going out of the championship. But Tipperary are thinking the exact same thing here, because they're under a lot of pressure going to the last few games as well, because of the hammering they took against Limerick at the Gaelic grounds, and the fact they got out of jail against Waterford a few weeks back too in Walsh Park. So it's not just Cork living on thin ice here, it is Tipperary as well. So that's why it makes it such a fascinating game really on Sunday, and a close with the call, especially in Thurles. I was hearing from the Premier View podcast as well that apparently there's more Cork fans projected to be in Thurles than Tipperary fans. So wow. What does that actually say about the Tipperary team and Liam Cahill? To me, I might be wrong in this, because there are only figures and rumours and things like that. But if that's the fact that's put forward by the Premier View podcast there, maybe it's a fact that the Cork fans believe in Pat Ryan and the team, whereas Tipperary do not with Liam Cahill. And there's something seriously wrong there. So if Tipperary go on and win this weekend, there might be a few things turning after that. So it's a crucial game for both sides.
Yeah, Sarah Nash has a comment here. Do you think that it's unfair that there's pretty much no relegation in the Munster Hurling Championship while there is in the Leinster Hurling Championship? It's a tricky one, really. I do think there's obviously a bit of common sense applied with the fact that Munster, like, you couldn't have Kerry in Munster. I don't think you could put Carlow in there, something of that nature, you know, that way. Like, I mean, it would be completely lopsided. And I know they got a draw versus Kilkenny, in fairness, Carlow, but I just think usually anyway, like it would be completely lopsided. So there probably is an element of common sense applied. But what maybe you could do is have the bottom team in Leinster play the bottom team in Munster in some sort of playoff. I think maybe that's something they should look at moving forward. But as you said, Tipperary versus Cork in Thurles. As you said, like Tipperary are coming in like very much under the radar. Like everyone's obviously talking about Cork. So much hype obviously around Cork after that win, as there would be considering they just beat the All-Ireland champions. First time they've done so in the championship since 2019. And Tipperary have obviously had a very disappointing year. They themselves lost to Limerick by 15 points. And of course, they drew against Waterford, albeit a couple of controversial decisions and everything else in and amongst it. But like Tipperary are dangerously going under the radar. And like they're not, fair enough, Cork maybe might be slightly favourites, as you said. Tipperary have maybe regressed ever so slightly in the last couple of years. But they still have some top players. And especially with Tipperary being at home in Semple Stadium, like it won't be an easy game for Cork. And I do find the amount of people writing Tipperary off going into this game, I think is very, very dangerous.
It definitely is. And I suppose Tipperary do have very good players to start the game, like Mark Keogh at the forward line, Jake Morris, Dara Stakel. There are some really, really good, young, hungry players. But the one question mark I have about this Tip team, why they're bringing on, no disrespect to Patrick Bonner-Maher and Noel McGrath, John McGrath, and all these great players, but these are players in their 30s, and Tipperary are bringing these on to save games for them. Whereas Cork are bringing on the likes of Shane Kingston and other younger players, and the likes of Dave McHallan, who is still just at the lower end of 30 and things like that. They still have Jack O'Connor on the bench. They still have Brian Roach on the bench. Good, young, hungry players in there. Whereas Tipperary are trusting more the older lads than the younger lads, such as Sean Hayes, for example, or Sean Ryan, for example. There's another guy that is slipping through my brain at the moment, who scored a goal against Clare in the league semi-final. I think it's Sean Hayes is his name. But they're not trusting them young players, and they're trusting the older guard. And that probably suggests to me, to Liam Cahill, is it's not as if he doesn't think the younger players are good enough. He thinks the older players will produce more coming out of the pitch than the younger players. And that is quite a worry. Because if you're bringing on the likes of Patrick Bonner-Maher and Noel McGrath and John McGrath week in, week out, and you still have the likes of Ronan Maher on the pitch, yes, they're experienced campaigners, but they've been around the block for so many years now. And Cork have a lot of bussing players around the park. So I think if you was to look at it from that standpoint, you would say Cork are favourites. But as you said, Tipperary have a bone to pick. They are going into this game, as you mentioned, they're under the radar. They do have very good players, like the likes of Jake Morris in the forward, like Mark Keogh, like Dara Stakel, and Ronan Maher still having a very good season. He scored 2 points the last day against Waterford from fullback. And when you think about it in the Waterford game, yes, they were poor in some aspects of it. But when you look at it in detail, if it wasn't for that decision from James Owens just to run across Barry Hogan's view for Stephen Bennett's penalty, we might have been talking about a different result there. So, and that was against a Waterford team that were very tough to break down at Walsh Park. And that was a Waterford team that obviously beat Cork as well. So I think Tipperary still have a bone to pick going into this game. There's still a lot on the line for them. And it's crucial for both sides because it is going to be knockout hurling. There is going to be tension in the air. It's a question of who will actually have the mettle to get over the line this one. You would think Cork, looking at the fact that they did beat Limerick, but still Tipperary is a dangerous place to go in Thurles. And a good Tipperary, a good on-form Tipperary side are going to be dangerous for any team in the country. So Cork have to watch their step here, and they have to keep their feet on the ground going into this game. Yes, it was a brilliant win over Limerick last weekend, and 77% shot accuracy and things like that. The puck outs, everything seemed to work, and the players brought intensity. They need to bring the same amount of intensity to this game against Tipperary to win this game. It's as simple as that. I know you could argue, well, there's no arguing, it is a fact here. Limerick are a better team than Tipperary, and there might be an argument that Cork could easily drop their level going into this game in terms of intensity, but they have to keep the same level. They have to. I know it's not exactly Limerick, it's not Kilkenny, it's not Clare, it's Tipperary, but this Tipperary team historically are going to be up there, it could be for every ball in Thurles. So I think Cork, if they bring the intensity that they brought to the Limerick game, I think Cork should win it. But that's a question more than a formality. We'll have to see how it transpires now on Sunday.
Yeah, Fail says here Stapleton was fairly demoralised on Tipcast earlier too, and the Tip fans seem to have no confidence in this team. Sorry to say. Yeah, look, I mean, there does seem to be a lot of Tipperary fans, journalists, ex-players and everything else that maybe aren't quite buying into things, and we've obviously saw interviews and everything with former players and everything else, but like, why has it not clicked, do you think, for Tipperary this year? Or where has it gone wrong? Or why is there such little buy-in? Because, like, obviously last year, fair enough, things went a little bit sour in the quarterfinals. But I did think all in all, Liam Cahill's first season, league semi-final, I remember they gave a very good account of themselves against Limerick in that league semi-final. They drew with Limerick, obviously, as well in the league, nearly won, or in the Munster Championship, nearly won that game. Fair enough, things went kind of badly towards the end of the season, the defeat to Waterford, and then obviously the defeat to Galway as well. But overall, I did feel like it was progress from Colin Bonner the season previous. And this year, fair enough, things took a bad slide on the opening weekend with the defeat to Limerick. But why do you think there is such little buy-in? Because as you said, like there has been a huge amount of underage success in the last couple of years. Fair enough, not all those players have made the breakthrough, but why do you think there's been such little buy-in from the Tipperary public with this team?
I think it's a combination of a few things. Number one, when you look at their last two championship games, and I have the stats of it for the Limerick and Waterford games, they conceded 45 shots against Limerick. They conceded 43 against Waterford. That's an average of 44 shots a game. Cork at 77% the last weekend. If they concede that same amount Tipperary, they'll be in massive trouble. There's no doubt about it. And their attack as well hasn't been firing. Yes, it was 60% against Waterford, and it was generally improved considering the last few games, but that's considering the last few games. Against Clare in the league semi-final, against Limerick in the league, and Limerick in the championship, their attack was way off. And you look at their shooting from frees as well, Garrett O'Connor and Jason Ford, two guys before the season even started. There are two guys that you'd put your house on in converting frees. Their free taking is around 50% or under that per game, which is not good enough. And I think if Tipperary have any aspirations to go on and beat Cork, they have to fix that particular aspect of the game. And I think they need to have one particular free taker. Just say, Jason Ford, you're on the frees today. And if you miss one of them, Garrett O'Connor's on it. Simple as it. And they need to make them split second decisions in these games as well. And they need to reduce the shot count as well. If they, as I said before, if they could see that number of shots that they did against Waterford and against Limerick, against Cork, they're in massive trouble. And I think if they could see loads of goal chances, they could see 3 goals against Waterford, they could see 2 against Limerick. Again, an average of 2-3 goals a game. And Cork scored 3 goals against Limerick and 1. So there might be a little buy-in because of the performances this year more than anything. Because of, even when you look at put away the championship for a bit, look at the league. Westmeath probably should have beat them in Thurles. Against Galway, they allowed them back into the game, and I don't know how that happened, to be honest with you. Against Limerick in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, their shooting was really, really poor that night. So Tipperary have not performed well from the first match of the league up until the Limerick game. Yes, the Waterford game in the championship, there was a bit of improvement, but they still have a lot of work to do to go on and beat this Cork side. And the fact that even Willie Connor, or there was one player, I think it was Alan Flynn from Kilkenny, actually was saying in the media even before the season started that Liam Cahill has a bias against Kilkenny players, referring mostly to Billy Seymour, who was the top scorer in the Tipp championship, which I think 2 goals, 76 points, or something like that. He still isn't being picked, and the likes of John McGrath, Noel McGrath coming on instead of him. So that suggests to me there's something seriously wrong there as well. There's not, there's not communication there either. So when you put them all into the mix, I think there is a reason why the Tipperary fans are feeling pessimistic going to this weekend. But then again, the mood could all change by 6 o'clock on Sunday evening if they manage to scrape a win against Cork. That's all it takes, one win. And I think Tipperary, they have the players, they're capable of doing it, but there still is a lot to improve on.
Yeah, ultimately then in terms of a prediction, like, you're going to back your own county, or how do you see it going?
I think it goes down to a number of things. If Cork give the same intensity as they did against Limerick, I think Tipperary won't be able to live with them. And that's my honest view on it. if Cork if Cork are as accurate as they were against Limerick, I think they'll win this game as well. So I think there's a lot more. The ifs tend to go towards Cork. I think there's one if for Tipperary to go on and win this game if they produce their best performance of the season. That's a big if, though. So for all those reasons, I'm gonna go for a Cork win, but slightly. But Tipperary, I wouldn't be surprised if they bite back this weekend. So it's going to be a tight one to call, but I'm just going to edge it to Cork.
Yeah, like I'd nearly be tempted to go with a draw just because the notion of the way this championship has gone has been like that. But I would agree with you. I think if Cork sort of play with that same intensity, that same pace as they played against Limerick, and they bring that same attitude and even the same like intensity that they brought to the Clare game, they should come through it. Like my only thinking would be, they gave so much against Limerick. Like, do they have could there be a bit of a burnout, or could their legs go a little bit? Be hard to know, but in fairness, I do think they will come through it ever so slightly. I'm going to go with a 2-point win for Cork, but at the same time, again, I do think there's going to be a big performance here from Tipperary, because I think there really, really does need to be, and I do think Liam Cahill arguably is fighting for his job ever so slightly. Fell says here as well, if Tipp put it up to you, will you be able to raise the game again so soon? I fancy an easy win for Cork, mind you. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying as well. Like if Tipperary can bring a huge amount of energy, having obviously not played in the last couple of weeks, and Cork obviously haven't come through that game against Limerick last week, that maybe could be something. But in saying that, as we saw, Cork have a huge amount of options from the bench, likes of Shane Kingston and whatnot, and I think those could be key, in fairness.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just did a bit of calculations there on the shots conceded by Tipperary. If they were to concede 44 shots on Sunday and Cork was to replicate their shot accuracy against Limerick, Cork would have a total of 34 scores, whether that would be 331 or 4 goals and 30 points or whatever. And if Cork produced the same level as they did against Limerick, and that epitomised the point even more, if Cork produced the same numbers and Tipperary do in the other side of the defence, I don't think Tipp go on and win this game. I simply don't. So the omens point towards Cork, but again, it's going to be a tight one to call.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other game in Munster, Clare versus Waterford, obviously taking place in Ennis. Massive game as well. Like if Waterford were to win the game, and depending on certain results, it could confirm their place in a Munster final. So it's absolutely huge, obviously, from a Waterford perspective. And obviously for Clare, like, look, Clare obviously lost the opening game to Limerick. They obviously bounced back with a win versus yourselves. Feels like it's been a while since they last played. It's obviously been a couple of weeks since they would have played. But how would you see this one going? I mean, like, Clare will be favourites, obviously being at home, but as we saw with this championship, we saw the levels that Waterford gave. They're going to be bang up for it. And of course, you have the Davy versus Lohan derby and everything else sort of to go with it, the rivalry between them two coaches. So there's so much on the line in this one.
I wouldn't say there's so much on the line compared to the Tipp and Cork game, because if either side lose this, there's still a chance next weekend that they put it out of the bag, especially for Clare to playing against Tipperary. So I would like to think Clare would fancy their chances against Tipperary, because they did beat Cork and things like that as well. And Tipp would have to put in a massive effort to even beat Cork this weekend. So I'd be confident enough to say that Clare will beat Tipperary next weekend. So it's just a matter of them. Do they want to get into a Munster final or not? As for Waterford, there's a little more pressure on them. I will not lie about this, because they still have Limerick to play next weekend. You would feel if they win this game, they're guaranteed a place in the All-Ireland series later in the season. So there isn't as much on the line as Cork and Tipperary, but there's still quite a lot when you think about the Lohan and Fitzgerald derby. It'd be interesting to see what Davy actually does. Does he play the usual tactics they did last year, defensive tactics, and not letting the Waterford players express themselves? Or really let the players express themselves like they did against Tipp and like they did against Cork, i.e. playing Dessie Hutchinson in the full forward line where it actually suits them. Stephen Bennett there as well, Jamie Barron allowing him off the leash. So it will be interesting to see that dynamic as well on a Sunday. But in terms of like permutations and things like that, I don't think either side are under intense pressure going into it, but I think there's still a lot on the line in terms of the derby on the sideline and their places in the Munster final and stuff like that, and even making their job easier for going to the last weekend of next weekend. So yes, still quite a bit on the line, but not as much as the other game.
Yeah, at the same time though, I think like for Waterford, like if they were to get the victory, then Clare can't catch them, because there'd be 3 points ahead of Clare, obviously going into the final weekend. Cork obviously won't be able to catch them as well because this weekend is their final game, and then depending on Tipperary's result, they won't be able to call as well. So, and if you're asking Waterford, if you're asking Davy Fitz, and obviously they won't admit it, and fans won't admit it either, but this is probably their best chance of getting to a Munster final, like, because beating Limerick next week is going to be very, very difficult, given the fact that Limerick obviously just got bet by Cork and they're going to need a win obviously themselves. So, like, I know going away to Ennis and everything's going to be difficult, but it is a big opportunity, I feel, for Waterford in the form that they have shown. And Clare have shown plenty of vulnerabilities as well at the same time. Like, they were excellent against Limerick for large parts, then fell apart. And even in the game versus Cork, like, you know, if Cork don't go down to 14 men, who knows? Maybe Cork will want to win that game. So, like, and that game could have really went either way. So you just feel like there is a chance there for Waterford, albeit Davy Fitz's record actually against Clare in recent seasons has been very poor. Lost to Clare last year very comfortably. A couple of disappointing defeats obviously in there with Wexford as well. But you feel for Waterford, it would be a big statement if they could go to Ennis and win.
Possibly so, and maybe to get to a Munster final in the group format. Waterford have never done that in their history. Yes, they got to a Munster final in 2020, but it was under COVID conditions. And if you disregard COVID, the last Munster final they got to, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, I think it was 2017? Yeah, 2017. Then they played against Tipperary, and that was an absolute bore-fest of a game when you think about it. So like, that's a long time for Waterford. That's 7 years. So they'd need to get back up the horse. They need to get to a Munster final. As well as that, and you went through the permutations there. If they do win this weekend, and we're both predicting a Cork win, then Waterford are guaranteed a Munster final spot, even before they play Limerick. So, like, there might be a lot on the line there for Waterford point of view, and they might think to themselves as well, the players and Davy Fitz himself, that if they do not win this game, when are they ever going to get out of Munster? Because of the toughness of getting out of Munster nearly every season. So it's a crucial game for Waterford, no doubt about it. And a crucial game, more or less said, I know Cork aren't exactly playing in this game, but a crucial game for Cork as well, because when you look at the permutations, if Waterford win this weekend and Clare beat Tipperary, then Cork's result against Tipperary might be null and void, really, because Cork will be out of the championship. So I think there'll be a lot of Cork fans actually shouting for Clare in this one. So it'd be an interesting one to call. It really will be. But for Waterford, quite a big one to get through. But for Clare, as I said, that they're playing Tipperary next weekend, they should win that game. Especially, I think that game is on Thurles, but still, like, they should win that game. Especially if Cork do want to beat Tipperary this weekend. So yeah, it's an interesting one to call. Do I think Waterford will get above the atmosphere in Ennis? Though that's another question. That is a question, because Clare will be bang up for this one, because they would know themselves, and Brian Lohan would know as well. The performance against Limerick, despite getting close to them and despite conceding 3 goals in that ridiculous 10-minute spell, they would know themselves their performance wasn't even good enough before that, and their performance against Cork wasn't really good enough up until the Sean O'Donoghue red card. So Clare have a lot to prove as well. So it will be an interesting game in terms of sides proving themselves. In terms of jeopardy, maybe not so, but yeah, it should still be an interesting one to watch.
Who are you backing then? Are you backing Clare?
I think Clare should get the job done at home, but wouldn't be surprised if Waterford turned them over here.
Yeah, like, prediction wise for myself, I'm torn a bit, because I do agree Clare at home in Ennis, fans obviously bang up for it. Maybe Tony Kelly might start now. Like, I don't know if he's ready, obviously, to start a game, but you'd expect maybe he might make a big appearance, obviously, in this one at some stage. And you feel like for Clare in general, they need to obviously they beat Cork the last week, but need to get another win on the board at home. But at the same time, I do think Waterford have a massive chance, considering how well Waterford have played. So I might just sit on the fence and predict a 0 draw, because you do get a lot of draws in the Munster Championship, in fairness, and I think it would throw it absolutely wide open. I think a draw would actually be a very good result for Cork as well, would it? Or maybe not, because Waterford would go to 4.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I'm doing the back of my head now. Waterford will be on 4 points, Cork will be on 4 points. Say Limerick will beat Waterford next weekend, which I think they will. That will mean Limerick will be on 6 points. Clare will be Tipperary, they'll be on 5. So no, it won't suit Cork at all. Cork will still be out.
Yeah, Clare have the best record in the round robin. Waterford have the worst. Surely that will change. Yeah, and Clare's record against Waterford as well has been very good. So, yeah, it's a hard one to know. But I think I will go with a draw there, because I do have a feeling Waterford are going to produce another big performance. Looking at the games in the Leinster Hurling Championship, we'll remind ourselves as how the league table looks here. So Dublin are sitting there on top with 5 points, Kilkenny with 4 points, Wexford and Galway are with 3 points, Antrim with 2 points, and Carlow are sitting bottom there with 1 point. Absolutely wide open. And as we were saying earlier, massive opportunity for Dublin to get to a Leinster final. They essentially have 2 Leinster semi-finals, if you want to call it that way. Like, if they win this weekend, they're guaranteed to be in a Leinster final. Or if they beat Galway in a couple of weeks' time in Pearse Stadium, then they'll be guaranteed pretty much to be in a Leinster final. So, look, Kilkenny are obviously coming in a little bit wounded after what was a shock draw versus Carlow. Dublin coming in huge form after a very heavy win versus Antrim. Like, the feeling I'm getting from other Dublin supporters is that you feel like this is a massive chance or a massive opportunity, especially with some of Kilkenny's injuries. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think it's a real chance, especially with Donald Burke back in the team after his long-term injury, and he's absolutely crucial. 1-11 the last day against Antrim, and the free took as well, even with Dublin being so far ahead, to take that on was excellent from him. Paul Crummy had a good performance as well. Conor Burke, I've been really impressed with the midfield. But look at the scenarios, actually. Dublin beating Kilkenny this weekend won't guarantee them in the Leinster final, because if Wexford and Galway win their 2 games, then it goes down to points difference. But look at Dublin's points difference. I think Dublin should be in the Leinster final. I'd be pretty safe in saying that. But what it definitely does mean, if Dublin beat Kilkenny this weekend, Kilkenny can't catch them. So, like, it's a big game, huge for Dublin, and they haven't beaten Kilkenny. Would it be correct in saying this, Aaron? They haven't beaten Kilkenny in the championship since the time with Dale up in 2013.
Yeah, so, I think it is. And I don't think we've come closer. We've had a few kind of moments here and there. Like, I remember in COVID, we came back from like 15 points, and I think it finished with a 1 or 2 points in it. There was another game I remember a few years previous to that where we nearly beat them as well. But generally speaking, they've beaten us quite comfortably. Like, I think if you were to look at an aggregate scoreline of Dublin and Kilkenny games, I'm pretty sure it would be like plus 200 Kilkenny or something like that. If you were to look at all the margins of victories, or 150 points or something of that nature, like, it has been very comfortable for Kilkenny in recent years.
That's the thing, actually. The COVID year, I actually didn't watch that game, but I do remember Dublin being very, very close and challenging them. I do remember the 2019 game, though. I think it was Fergal Whiteley scored the second goal in that day. Then Liam Blanchfield broke Dublin hearts with that goal towards the end to beat Dublin in Parnell Park. So, like, I think there'll be a lot of Dublin players in that team as well. Fergal Whiteley's still there, obviously scored that goal against Carlow, that will remember that day too. And they might think to themselves, this is a huge opportunity here, lads. This is a huge opportunity to beat a Kilkenny team that is reeling. When you look at last weekend, yes, they had players missing and things like that. Owen Cody's still not fully match fit. TJ Reid was there, but a few other players weren't either. There was Killian Doyle getting sent off. There was the thing with Tom Phelan throwing the ball into the crowd, and what about that in the Carlow game? What on earth was he doing? Like I'm thinking Kilkenny were on the road to victory, but he just throws the ball into the stand and Carlow get a free. And it's such an easy free. It's such an easy free to concede. And now Kilkenny are under massive pressure because of that. And the thing is, like, would I go for the shock and say Dublin will win here? Because it's not because I want to impress you or Seamus or whatever, Aaron. It's because I genuinely believe it, because this is a huge opportunity for these lads to go on and beat Kilkenny. And I think there was that moment as well that I think Antrim would have felt that against Wexford a few weeks ago. Wexford would have felt that against Galway. Maybe it's the time for Dublin to beat this Wexford side, especially with the performance against Antrim the last day. Like, I know it was in Parnell Park, it was home comforts and all that, but for Dublin, they would have gone into that game. A lot of people would have wrote them off, but straight away from the throw, and Paul Crummy scores the goal, and you think, okay, they're well in this now. So I think there's a little bit of a different mentality to this Dublin team than there was last year. I remember last year against Clare and any other side as well, especially against Clare in the quarter final. As soon as Donald Burke went off injured, that was like, that's it. Dublin are losing this game. and he kind of petered out after that. But I feel like this Dublin team is much more different to last season even, and I think there could be a shock on the cards this Saturday. And as well as that, it will be interesting from a Dublin point of view and Kilkenny as well. See, is Owen Cody going to be fit for this game? Is Adrian Mullen going to be fit? Is any other player that was missing in the last few weeks going to be fit? Mikey Carey and a few others as well. Are they going to be fully fit for this one? If Owen Cody, for example, is fully fit for this, I think he could be a major one to stop for this Dublin team. So, yeah, it maybe could all ride on who's fit or not.
Yeah, like, and I suppose you have Owen O'Donnell obviously back for Dublin as well. Like, and he's an absolute colossal of a fullback in fairness. But I think the thing that worries me though is that Kilkenny, you very rarely ever see them slip up to a lesser team. Like we saw it happen with Galway a couple of times with Dublin, and obviously we saw Wexford completely annihilate Galway a couple of weeks ago. We saw Wexford on the receiving end of surprises. We saw the same obviously with Dublin at times as well. So I just think for Kilkenny, like there has to be a response. They have to, because I feel like, as you said before, like the standards definitely did drop against Carlow, and even some of their fringe players, as you said, didn't really turn up on the day. So you feel like there has to be a response. There has to be a bite back. And that's kind of what worries me a little bit. I nearly think if the Carlow-Kilkenny game hadn't have happened, then maybe we'd actually maybe have a better chance. But at the same time, because obviously Carlow took a point from Kilkenny, that's why we're also saying Dublin have a chance. But I just feel Kilkenny can't be as complacent because they know more than anyone. Like they've played in Parnell Park on numerous occasions. Like they know they need to be up for it, especially when Dublin are in such good form.
They definitely do. And maybe last weekend was a bit of a wake-up call, because last week it didn't seem like I didn't watch the full game. I was watching the under-20 football semi-finals, but I see the highlights this morning on YouTube. RT put up the highlights package, and it seemed like in that package it looked like Kilkenny just weren't up for it. It looked like the players were kind of taking it for granted, saying, "Oh yeah, Carlow will be easy. We'll ease through this challenge." And even like the attitude from some of the players, like especially Killian Dahl getting sent off, Tom Phelan throwing the ball into the crowd, TJ at times as well. There was a few players just jogging more than sprinting. And I think Kilkenny have to change their attitude to go on and beat Dublin this weekend, because Dublin will take it serious. And Dublin are a better team than Carlow. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I just think Dublin have better players than them. They have a better club championship. They have a better coach, and be all Donoghue. So Kilkenny have to be up for it. If they're not up for this game, it could be warning signs. And I think, and I get your point about Kilkenny. They rarely do it. They rarely drop the ball. Like that's why everyone was so surprised when Carlow actually drew against them, because this wasn't like the Kilkenny of old, where yes, okay, most people might argue Clare are the second best team in the country over Kilkenny and things like that, but they never would have expected Carlow to draw with them in Leinster. So it could be one or two things. Number one, Kilkenny have the wake-up call they needed and go full hell for leather for this. Or number two, there might be a different mindset with Derek Lane's team this time round. If it's the latter, I think Dublin have a huge chance in this. So it's an interesting one to call. It would be an interesting one to see on Saturday what attitude Kilkenny do come up with, and can Dublin capitalise if Kilkenny are under par.
Yeah, what do you reckon then in terms of a prediction? Do you reckon the Dubs can do it?
I think they can. I think Dublin can beat Kilkenny this weekend because of just the attitude of the Kilkenny players last weekend. It just wasn't up to scratch really, and I think Dublin might capitalise at this. And as well as that, I don't think Dublin would have a better opportunity of beating Kilkenny than on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So I think Dublin to win this.
There we go. Like, I don't know, like I want to predict a Dublin win, but I just think that there's going to be a response from Kilkenny. There has to be a response. And I do remember the chat during the league about Dublin, with the fact that, there's not enough young players coming through. I do think against Wexford, we got out of jail with those 2 late goals. I don't think we were particularly brilliant against Carlow either. Yes, we were outstanding versus Antrim, but I do think there'll be a response from Kilkenny. But honestly, even as a Dublin fan, I just want to make sure this is a game. That's the least I'd ask of Dublin. Make it competitive. Stay in the game. Even if we lose narrowly by a couple of points, I think that puts us in a good place going into the Galway game, because I do think score difference could very well come into the equation. And even if we were to lose to Galway and Kilkenny, could still finish in third place. But as you said, it's a massive opportunity for Dublin, in fairness. Antrim versus Galway. Look, if this game was a couple of weeks ago, I think myself and yourself would have just said Galway will win this comfortably by 15, 20 plus. And they really should, because Dublin beat Antrim by 20 plus. And obviously Kilkenny absolutely hammered Antrim as well. But we all saw what Antrim did against Wexford a week before Wexford went out and comfortably beat Galway. So it should be a comfortable win for Galway, but you just don't know in the Leinster Hurling Championship anymore, in fairness.
And the thing is as well, and I before even going on podcasts and stuff like that, I checked where is this game on, and I seen it, Corrigan Park. This is a dangerous one for Galway, especially with the performances they have been giving. Like, the performance against Wexford wasn't good enough from Henry Shefflin's side, and the performance against Kilkenny, it was almost like a missed opportunity to beat the Cats. So, and the league performances weren't much better either. And I just don't believe in this, this team that Henry Shefflin is building at the moment, because the first two seasons, you were thinking the first season, okay, they're making progress, and you could see blueprints of Henry's team. The second year, towards the end of it, against Limerick, at the end of that first half, when Henry Shefflin was saying, we're leaving one up top, that was almost suicidal. Like, it was almost like you're just giving up against this Limerick side, and that was a bit poor. But this season has got even worse for them by looking at the performances, and it doesn't seem like the players are buying into Henry's tactics either, which is a worrying sign. So Antrim have every chance of beating him. So it's a tough one to call. It really is. You would think Galway, you would hope from a Galway fan point of view that they'll have enough to win this game, because if they do not win this game, I think your tweet a few weeks ago, Aaron, might be coming true, because Galway might even worry about the Joe McDonagh Cup rather than the Leinster final at this stage, because it's just absolutely mental. So it's a must-win for Galway. They should win it, but there's every chance, especially with Antrim at home in Corrigan Park in front of their home comforts. There's every chance Antrim put off the shock here.
Yeah, absolutely crazy if it did happen. In fairness, like, and yeah, like, what would you think though? Would you go with Galway, or would you go for another surprise here?
If I go for two surprises, I think I'd be going to a mental institution, so I probably won't go for that. I'm going to go for Galway, but I think they'll win this by under 5 points. I think it'll be tight.
Wow, yeah, I'll probably go with 8 or 9 for Galway. I just think as well, a bit like the Kilkenny thing, there has to be a response for Henry Shefflin. And I think look, score difference is important. We saw that in previous Leinster championships. You look at the score difference Kilkenny racked up on Antrim as an example, what Dublin have done obviously as well. And I know Wexford lost against Antrim entirely. Like, playing Antrim at Corrigan Park is a different kettle of fish to playing them in your own stadium. But yeah, I think there has to be a response from Galway, and I think they will. I think they'll win it by 9 points. Carlow versus Wexford, again, like, it's another one where when you look at Carlow's performances against Dublin, I thought they were very good. Came within 4 points of Galway at one stage, ultimately ended up losing by 11, and of course the draw with Kilkenny as well. So, like, Carlow will feel like they can win this game, because although Wexford put in a top class performance beating Galway, we all know about Wexford. We all know what they're like. And you would think, though, it happened to Wexford against Antrim. It happened to Wexford against Westmeath last year. Surely they're going to learn, and surely they're going to do what they should do and beat Carlow. But again, you just wouldn't be so sure.
You wouldn't know, but there is a scenario, actually, despite Carlow playing so well against Kilkenny last weekend and getting that point, there is a scenario where Carlow actually get relegated this weekend. Mm-hmm. Because if Antrim beat Galway, I'm trying to think, if Antrim beat Galway and they lose this game, they are relegated. So I think a lot will depend on, and obviously Antrim Galway is on Saturday, this game's on Sunday, so I think, honestly, it does depend on the Antrim Galway results. I think if Galway win that game, as both of us are predicting, I think Wexford will go on and win this game, because Carlow will put the eggs into the basket for the Antrim game on the final day. But if Antrim put off that result against Galway, Carlow will be up for this. So it really depends.
I think they'll be up for it regardless, to be honest, especially after that performance they put in against Kilkenny.
Is there an argument though that they be up for Antrim more because it's a more realistic chance of winning?
I think there is. I think there definitely is. All right, because obviously, that game is in Corrigan Park on the final day. But I just think after the feeling in the camp, the confidence and everything else, having nearly beat Kilkenny, like they'll be feeling like they can beat anyone at the moment. And I know they didn't beat Kilkenny necessarily. Obviously, it was a draw, but I just think confidence is through the roof. And while the confidence is there, while you're having players like Marty Kavanagh producing what they're producing, Fiacre Fitzpatrick obviously as well, Chris Nolan, like I don't think they'll win the game, but I think they will give a fair battle to Wexford. In fairness, I would still imagine Wexford will pull away and win by 3 or 4, but I could see Carlow giving a very good game of it. In fairness,
should be interesting to see, but you'd imagine Wexford will not drop the ball like they did a few weeks ago against Antrim. And you'd like to think the Galway performance has spurred them on to do better things. And that 1-6 from play from Rory O'Connor will give him the world of confidence going into this game. Lee Chin will be as good as ever as well. Carl Dunbar in the background as well. Conor McDonagh had a decent performance the last day against Galway as well. So I think Wexford are just going into this game a lot more confident than, say, Galway are against Antrim. I think that'll be enough to get them over the line this one. I think Wexford should win this game. Having said that, though, Carlow have the capacity to shock anyone. They were so close to Dublin, and when you think about it, Dublin are top dogs in Leinster at this present moment in time. But if it wasn't for that Fergal Whiteley goal, Carlow could have won that game. So there is a chance that Carlow win this game as well. I just think Wexford will have too much quality, and I don't think they'll drop the ball like they did a few weeks ago against Antrim. I'm going to go for Wexford to win it.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think the fact that Carlow even drew with Kilkenny as well, like, will make them more aware of it. Do you know that way? Like, so, because I think the fact that Wexford are going into the Antrim game, with Antrim coming in on the back of a 30-point drubbing to Kilkenny, you know, I think that probably played a part into their complacency. In fairness, we'll have a look at the some of the games in the lower tier competition, starting off with the Joe McDonagh. So this is how the table looks going into the penultimate round of games. So Laois are top with 6 points. Offaly and Kerry with 4 points down are in fourth with 3 points. Westmeath, they're in fifth with 1 point. And Meath have 0 points. And then looking at the games in the Joe McDonagh. So we have Westmeath versus Meath. We've Laois versus Down. And we have Offaly versus Kerry. I suppose like the Westmeath-Meath game like is interesting because like if Westmeath lose, like they could be on the brink of relegation to the Christy Ring, which would be absolutely crazy, really.
It would be absolutely mental if Westmeath were to go down. And Westmeath, especially against Offaly, I watched that game in matchday too, where they weren't too bad. I think Killian Doyle got most of their scores that day, but they weren't like a disaster or anything like that. So if they were to lose this game, then there'd have to be serious questions about Joe Fortune, to be honest with you. The fact that they did put it up to they beat Wexford last season, they put it up to most of the Leinster teams last season, and for them potentially to go out to the Christy Ring Cup within a year or so, that'd be worrying.
Awfully all over again, wouldn't it?
It would be, yeah, definitely. You would expect Westmeath to win that game. Like Meath, there's a bit of turmoil behind the scenes. Saoirse Bulfin obviously leaving before the season even started. I know Nicki Rackard scored 2-5 in the last game and did well enough, in fairness, but I just think there's problems in Meath that both of the media and the public don't know about, and I just think Westmeath does a lot more togetherness than Meath is, so I just think Westmeath should win that game. As for Laois and Down, Laois should win that easily. Laois are an absolute train, like a steaming train at the moment, and they should be going to the Joe McDonagh final at ease. Offaly Kerry is an interesting one because Kerry have performed really, really well, and some would argue above themselves. And the thing is as well, it's going to be interesting dynamic in this one because Luke Crowley, the Kerry hurler, he is in under-20 football action on the Sunday against Tyrone, and he's going to play hurling against Offaly on the Saturday. So which eggs would you put into the basket here? Because Kerry hurlers have a huge chance of potentially shocking the apple cart and beating Offaly. Or do you put your eggs into the basket for the All-Ireland under-20 final against a decent Tyrone side? So it's a one to consider for Luke Crowley. He's doing well, balancing both at the same time. I would expect Offaly to win it, and just while we're off air, Offaly are in the under-20 final. They beat Kilkenny by a point tonight, and they're playing Dublin in that. Leinster final. So Adam Screedy scored 10 points, Shane Reedney scored 2-3 in that one, and they're going to play this weekend. So they'll be buoyed with confidence going to this weekend's game against Kerry. And I think the good vibe train will just move on for Offaly, and I think they should win that one. But imagine if Kerry win it and shocked it. Like, who's to say Kerry will miss out of the Joe McDonagh final then? Like, it would be an incredible achievement if Kerry win this game at the weekend.
Absolutely, it would be, yeah. Like, especially at the start of the year, because you were looking at, obviously, Westmeath, Laois, Offaly, you were thinking there's no chance for Kerry. Like, they'd be closer to relegation than a Joe McDonagh Cup final. But, yeah, that would be an extraordinary achievement. In fairness, Christy Ring looks a little bit like this. So we have Kildare on top with 8 points, Derry are second with 6 points, London third with 6 points as well, Wicklow with 2 points, Tyrone with 2 points, and Sligo are bottom. And then in the fixtures, we have London versus Kildare, Sligo versus Derry, and Tyrone versus Wicklow. I think these are the final round of fixtures in the Christy Ring as well, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
What would you reckon for some of these games? I mean, you'd fancy Kildare to beat London, but London have shown a bit of form this year, to be fair.
London have been really, really good up until that Derry game last weekend, where Derry absolutely shocked them in Owen Big. London were going on full collision course with Kildare to the Christy Ring final, but Derry shot the apple cart. They got that win against London. Now they're on the driving seat. But there is a scenario, if Derry beat Sligo, which they should, and Sligo, I'd say it right now, Sligo are going down to Nicki Rackard. I think that's safe to say. But if London beat Kildare and Derry beat Sligo, all three sides are on 8 points there, and it goes down to points difference. Bring the calculators out. It will be very, very interesting to see who actually makes that Christy Ring final. So I think it's a difficult one to see London winning, because Kildare are just above themselves in this competition. I think they're really, really good. Brian Dowling has them in good fettle. Jack Sheridan's in good form. Merce Curtin, all them players in fantastic form in the forward line. I think they should get over the line. Albeit London have some excellent forwards, the likes of Sean Glynn, the likes of Ronan Crowley, the likes of Jack Goulding, that can pull off a shocker. And they're at home. So do I go for the shock and say London beat Kildare? I think they might actually do so in Royce. I think they will. I think London will win that game, and Derry will beat Sligo. So it will go down to points difference. I'll have to get the math calculator out to see who actually gets in that final. But it will be very interesting to see who does it come Saturday evening. As for relegation, yes, Sligo, by losing to Derry, they will go down to Nicki Rackard, and that Tyrone Wicklow game is a bit irrelevant.
Yeah, like I mean, look, if they can take some inspiration from the London footballers, you never know. In fairness, it'd be quite the story if London go on a run in the Tailteann Cup and then obviously do something in the Christy Ring as well. But probably would go with Kildare still. I just think when you look at their results across the board and in the Christy Ring, I do think they are too good for this competition. They just need to now start establishing themselves in the Joe McDonagh, because I think they're more than capable of maybe not getting out of Joe McDonagh, but definitely making a good stab at it. In fairness, looking at the Nicki Rackard then, so Donegal are on top with 8 points, Mayo, Roscommon both on 6 points, Armagh and Louth both with 2 points there in 4th and 5th, and Monaghan are sitting bottom with 0 points. And looking at the games, Roscommon, Mayo, Louth versus Donegal, and Armagh versus Monaghan. So I suppose when you're looking at the Roscommon and Mayo game, and then you're seeing them both there with 6 points, that's the big one, really, isn't it? Mayo, Roscommon, rivals in football, rivals in hurling now for this weekend as well to get into the final.
Exactly. And Roscommon had a heavy defeat last week against Donegal. Mayo are going under confidence. They hammered Armagh last week, and Mayo seem to get more scores on the board and epitomised by score difference, because if Mayo draw this game, that'll be enough to see them into the Nicki Rackard final. Roscommon have to win this, and it will be a difficult one to see how they can overcome a decent Mayo side, the likes of Cormac Phillips in there, the likes of a few others. Keith Higgins has been there over the last few seasons as well, and there was other good players like Danny Houan for Mayo as well, is a decent enough player. So yeah, I do think Mayo are favourites going into it, and I think Mayo will go on and win that game. And as for relegation, Monaghan, if they lose or draw, they're down. But there is a scenario actually if Armagh, Monaghan are playing Armagh. If Monaghan beat Armagh and Louth draw against the Donegal team, they're basically on the beach before the Nicki Rackard Cup final. If all the results happen, Armagh are now relegated to the Lory Meagher. So they have to watch themselves this weekend. So I do think Armagh should have enough. Alex O'Boyle's in brilliant form, top scorer, I think, in the Nicki Rackard at the moment. So I think Armagh should have enough to beat Monaghan this weekend. I think Mayo will get to that Nicki Rackard Cup final. It's an impressive Donegal team thus far.
And looking at the Lory Meagher, we've Fermanagh on top with 7 points, Longford in second with 6 points, Cavan are third with 5 points, Leitrim are fourth with 4 points, Warwickshire fifth with 2 points, and Lancashire are bottom with 0 points. And looking at the fixtures then as well, it's Longford, Fermanagh, Leitrim, Cavan, Lancashire versus Warwickshire. And if we take it back to the league table at the moment, like probably looking at Fermanagh and I suppose Fermanagh and Longford both playing each other there, so that'll be a huge one.
Massive, yeah. Like Longford have some decent players. Like I didn't actually know this until doing scores and stuff like that. But Longford have a guy that he's the top scorer in this competition. I think it is called Cian Darcy. He does play for Kilruan McDonagh's in Tipperary. So I think he's actually from Tipperary and he plays for Longford. I'm not sure what the loophole is there, but he does play for Longford. He's a very good hurler. Fermanagh have some excellent hurlers as well. They want to confirm their place in this Nicki Rackard or Lory Meagher final. I think Fermanagh should have enough to win this game against Longford. And just a matter of interest, who are Cavan playing this weekend, Aaron?
Cavan are playing Leitrim.
Okay.
So if we have a look at it there as well, like, I mean, yeah, I'm not too sure with head-to-heads, but a win for Cavan anyway and a Longford defeat would put them in the final.
Longford beat Cavan last weekend, so a draw wouldn't be enough for Cavan. So they have to win that game against Leitrim. A decent enough Leitrim side as well, 4 points on the board as they've seen there. I think Cavan will have enough. I think they'll beat Leitrim this weekend, and I think that'll be the final for Fermanagh against Cavan. But Longford, with Cian Darcy in the team, I would be shocked if they overcame Fermanagh either.
There we go. So yeah, look, that wraps up the hurling action. We're going to crack on into the football games. Obviously, plenty to discuss, plenty to talk about in regards to the football. Like we've obviously got the group stages are obviously starting this weekend. 4 games happening in the groups. You've got Galway versus Derry, you've got Mayo versus Cavan, Clare versus Cork, and Kerry versus Monaghan, and of course round 2 in the Tailteann Cup as well. So we'll start with Galway versus Derry. Huge one, this one, obviously, for Derry. Like, obviously, having lost to Donegal a couple of weeks ago, it feels like an absolute age since they played, in all honesty, and it feels like almost the start of a new season for Derry in many ways. But Galway, after beating Mayo, like, I mean, they'll be full of confidence, especially with Comer back, with Walsh back, Killian McDade's back, maybe Matthew Tierney as well. And interestingly enough, I heard from Mal McMullen earlier, like, Derry have never beaten Galway in the championship, which is quite the statistic as well. So, like, I don't know. Like, this one could be a draw and go down to the wire. What would you be thinking for this?
It's a tough one to call, really, because the Derry probably were going in as favourites 2 years ago in that All-Ireland semi-final. And similar sort of scenario to the Donegal game where Lynch was going off his line and Galway caught him that day. But what would be interesting, not just the result in this, because I think someone made a point in the paper, I think it was at the back of the Independence last week, about games like Galway, Derry and Roscommon, Dublin next week. They don't necessarily have, meaning to the game in terms of like jeopardy and things like that, which should be probably improved. The 3 sides go through and things like that. I think, honestly, judging by that narrative and things like that from that Independent article, I'm not sure off the top of my head who actually wrote it, but I read it was a very good article, by the way, last week in the Independent. But judging by that, and it's not a results-based business in the group stage, I think it'll be interesting to see what Derry's temperament will be. What will they do with Orr Lynch? Will they actually bring him out again? Will they play a different type of tactic and things like that? So it will be interesting to see the dynamics as well with Galway. Will they start Shane Walsh in this one? Like they didn't do so against Mayo, kept him on the bench, came on later on and did a direct after that. Will they start the likes of Kieran Malloy this one? Damien Comer, he's going to be a focal point again. Who will go on him from a Derry point of view? Will it be Christy McCaig? Like you'd imagine so, considering his threat in the Connacht final against Mayo. So a lot of narratives around this game, but it's just a shame that there's no like jeopardy around this, as people have been mentioning in the lead up to this. And yeah, it will be an interesting one to see who goes on and wins this game. And provides a platform to potentially get that top spot in the group, because I think all these sides, like the Galways, the Derrys, the Kerrys, the Dublins, the Mayos, will be aiming for that top spot, because you looked at last season, only one of the four of the top spot failed to reach the semi-final. That was Armagh losing in penalties. That's been the norm, to be honest. But that was the only team that failed to reach the semi-finals. So it does show that the teams coming through the preliminary round route get more tired once they get to Croke Park or the Water Finals. So there'll be a lot of aim once it comes to these sorts of teams at the higher end of the pedestal to get to the quarterfinals straight away rather than going to the provincial route. So in a way, it's a crucial enough game. Is there jeopardy? No. But is there a crucialness, if that's a word, to this game? Maybe there is, considering both sides would be vying for top spot.
Yeah, Shawnee says here, we'll be interested to see where Derry are. Are they gone or revitalised? Galway have a good record against northern teams. Yeah, look, I mean, it will be interesting for Derry, all right. But for Galway, I suppose, looking at them, first of all, having obviously beat Mayo in the way they did, obviously with a couple of late points and the way they turned the game around. Like, if we think back to last year, Galway were at a certain stage in the championship, I remember people's favourites. A lot of people were looking towards them. They were the most consistent. At the time, Dublin looked very inconsistent. Kerry were very inconsistent. You didn't like Mayo had started the league very, very well, but looked like they'd start to fall off the boil. And Galway was quietly going about their business, beating obviously Tyrone and Galway prior to losing to Armagh. And then obviously things very much fell apart after that. So like, are Galway back now to looking like the Galway we think we know, because Walsh is back, Comer is back, Killy McDade and Matthew Tierney might be potentially back as well. So like, Galway nearly have their best starting 15, which they haven't had too often this year.
And the thing is, it's kind of the opposite from last season, because in the league and in the Connacht Championship, Galway seemed to be peaking a bit too early. And this year, when you look at it, like, Sligo could have beat them in that semi-final in Connacht, but I think that was kind of, I would like to say it was a plan from Pádraig Joyce, because I'm sure they don't go in with that mentality going to any game in the championship. And Sligo are a decent side. But Galway kind of are timing their form, if you like, to perfection. And Mayo seemed to be doing that in the Connacht Championship as well, but until they lost the final to Galway, which was really, really poor. Maybe they could revitalise their season. That's another discussion for another game, Mayo against Cavan later on. But I think for Galway, I think the performance in the Connacht final was almost perfect. 69% shot accuracy. Their kickouts were really, really good. Conor Gleeson seemed to get a bit more confidence. I think that was the thing from a Galway goalkeeping standpoint as well. Conor Gleeson lacked confidence over the last few seasons. Even when they got to that All-Ireland final 2 years ago, he was seen as the weak link in that Galway team. To kick those two frees and 45s to win the game against Mayo in that Connacht final, I think that might be the sign of a new dawn for him. Because of the confidence that he will get later on down the season. So it will be crucial to see that type of standpoint at how Galway are progressing. And who will they start with? Like, Robert Finnerty's in brilliant form. Damien Comer's in brilliant form. Shane Walsh, you would imagine that's going to be the full forward line. Matthew Tierney at centre forward. Johnny Heaney at a wing. You would imagine, like, I don't know who'll be at the other wing, but that's still a very good forward line to have. And Killy McDade potentially to come back in there as well. Paul Conroy, John Maher played well against Mayo at times. So when you look at the names in the team sheet, Galway have some very good players. And it's still a Ciara Malloy to come in. You still have Dylan McHugh, who performed excellently last day against Mayo. Jack Lynn, Conor Gleeson getting a bit more confidence. Sean Kelly, what will they do with him now? Killy McDade's back in the team, and John Maher's getting more of a game time. Will they move him back to full back? Will they keep him in midfield? It'd be an interesting dynamic to see on Saturday how it does play out. But yeah, Galway are going along nicely. And you wouldn't have said that before the Mayo game. You would have said that Galway are struggling kind of docket. But this time round, Galway seem to be timing their form, if you like, to perfection.
Yeah, I suppose at the same time, like, I mean, looking at it from a Derry perspective, like, they definitely haven't gone away. Like, they're still there. They're still one of the All-Ireland favourites. Yes, they lost to Donegal, but I think when you actually look back at that game, they actually weren't that bad. Like, I think they scored 23 points. They obviously made a couple of big errors, obviously, as you said, with Orr Lynch getting caught off his line on a couple of occasions. But all in all, their performance against Donegal, I thought for large parts was very good. It was just certain moments that went wrong. So, like, for Derry, and the fact is as well, Derry have been playing consistently week in, week out for the last couple of years. They've barely ever had a break from the start of the league right up until the end of the championship. These Derry lads have barely had a break. And even you think of the Watty Graham's Glen lads as well, the likes of Kieran McFall, Conor Glass. So, like, the break, it's going to be interesting to see how they've used it, because it could either be a brilliant thing or it could maybe be like they had too much time off. How do you look at Derry coming into this? Because it's kind of hard to know. Like, they're certainly still one of the All-Ireland favourites. There's no doubt about that. But it is going to be interesting seeing them having such a long time off, because we haven't seen that with Derry in the last couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. And will these players be revitalised more than anything? Like Shane McGuigan seemed a bit tired, in fairness, against Donegal. Christy McCaig seemed to be a bit off it. Conor Glass was anonymous the last day against Donegal, and that was quite a worry as well. So, yeah, I think there'll be a lot of interesting dynamics around this Derry team. Like Brendan Rodgers as well, he played well enough in that Donegal game. He has to go up another level to even compete with Galway this weekend as well. You have Owen Lynch, the debacle there. Will they persist with him moving outside the goal? Will they keep going with it? Will they go into a more conservative kind of standpoint? Will they push him backwards more or less? So it'll be interesting to see all them dynamics go into the game. Will they start Lachlan Murray? Who will they start? Will they start Niall Toner on the forward line? It would be interesting to see if Derry kind of go into this more energised, or will they pick up from their bad enough game against Donegal. And I know there was the argument they scored 17 scores, Donegal scored 15, but the goals killed them. And when you look at it from a wider standpoint, there, 3 of those goals were down to Owen Lynch coming out of the goal. So you would imagine if Mickey Hart is going to say to these Derry lads that they're well capable of winning the All-Ireland, he has to tell Owen Lynch to get back into the goal. Simple as. That's the number one step. And I think they have to try something different in this game against Galway. There's no danger of them going out, because you'd imagine they'll beat Westmeath and they might find enough form to beat either Armagh or Galway. So there's still time to scope. So Mickey Hart has to use that time to experiment Owen Lynch staying on his line or not going off his line too often. So that's number one. And number two as well, get Conor Glass more to the game. Get Shane McGuigan more to the game. Get Brendan Rodgers more to the game. Get your main players on the ball as much as possible. So that'll be interesting from the Derry standpoint as well. It'll be an interesting watch.
Yeah, like, and I was just having a look back there. I don't know why I thought it was 23 points that Derry had. It was 17 points that they actually finished up with against Donegal. But in fairness, still quite a high points tally, in fairness, for a team that didn't win the game. What would you be thinking then in terms of a prediction?
I'm going to go a draw. I'm going to sit on the fence for this one. I think both sides might hide their cards a bit. Like, it's a game with no jeopardy. I just think it'll be a draw. I think it'll be a draw. And Galway will prove that they are still among the All-Ireland favourites, even if some people kind of writ them off earlier in the year. Yeah,
I'm going to go for a Derry victory, but I do think it'll be a very high-level game. It'll be very close. I think both sides will perform well. But I just fancy Derry to get over the line. I think they'll want to prove, like, I wouldn't say there's many doubters out there, in fairness, but there probably has been a few people that have started to write Derry off a little bit. And I think they'll right the wrongs. They've never beaten Galway in the championship before. So I think that's a record that they will want to beat. And I think that they will. And I think they'll remind everyone that they are still very much massive All-Ireland contenders. And I think winning that group as well is going to be huge. Because as we said before, you're most likely going to avoid Kerry and Dublin in an All-Ireland quarter-final as well, if that happens, provided obviously they come through their groups, in fairness. And speaking of Kerry, they're playing Monaghan in Group 4. I mean, look, do Monaghan have any chance here? Like, they're coming in on the back of 8 straight defeats, 7 defeats obviously in the league, or 6 defeats in the league, 1 defeat in championship, so 7 straight defeats. Obviously, they beat Dublin in the opening game in the league many moons ago. I mean, it feels like that was almost last year at this point. So Kerry surely should win quite comfortably. I mean, they weren't particularly brilliant against Clare, which will give Monaghan a little bit of confidence, but be very hard to see Monaghan get anything from this, especially with this game being in, I think it's in Kilkenny.
Yeah, I think Kerry should win this pretty easily, and especially with number one, Monaghan's form has been really, really poor this season. They haven't won a game since January. against Dublin, and that night Dublin were without their main players and it was more of an experimental team. And number two, Monaghan don't have a great record going down to Killarney, and I just think Kerry should have enough. Although Kerry did struggle in this very venue last year against Mayo. So there is a potential for Monaghan, if they get their A game going, that they can beat Kerry. But I just feel there's a lot of work for Monaghan to do to beat this Kerry side. And I think Kerry should win this pretty easily in the end. It'll be interesting to see who goes on. David Clifford, will it be Conor Boyle or somebody like that for the Monaghan defence? If Monaghan managed to, it would be interesting from a David Clifford standpoint as well, because he didn't perform to his utmost against Cork and he didn't against Clare. You would feel if he has a ball to pick for later on down the season, he has to perform well in this game to get his season going. So I think this might be the opportunity for him to do that, to stretch his legs in Killarney as well on a nice day there. I think it might be an opportunity to do that. I think Kerry should win this comfortably, in all honesty.
Yeah, I suppose at the same time, like Monaghan, yes, they had a very poor league, as we know. Obviously got beat by Cavan as well, but like there is a good team still in Monaghan. Like you still have Conor McManus, Conor McCarthy, possibly Rory Meagher, potentially back obviously now as well. So I mean, like you feel like for Monaghan, surely at some stage there has to be a kick, because like there are plenty of good young players that have obviously made the breakthrough in the in the last couple of years as well. So like you feel like at some stage there's going to be a kick, but at the same time doing it against Kerry, I think it's going to be very difficult.
It is, yeah, and you'd imagine from a Monaghan standpoint, it's just about getting these players, the likes of Sean Jones, not so much McManus, because I don't think he needs confidence. He's still a very good player. Let's not forget that. But the likes of Sean Jones, the likes of young players beside him as well, Killian Levin and things like that. It's about getting their confidence up more than anything, and not about how they get on the All-Ireland this year, because Darren Hughes, I think that's the last we've seen of him. Hard injury that he got against Cavan. Kieran Hughes retired last season. Conor McManus, you'd imagine this is his last season as well. Roy Meagher, what's the story with him? Is he going out to the States or not? He got rejected, I think, during the week or a few weeks ago. So that's a setback for him. But is he going to stay in Ireland much longer? Remains to be seen. So yeah, there's a lot of narratives around Monaghan, and I just think for their own confidence, I think the younger players need to get the confidence going for later on the next few seasons, not just this season, because I think this season has been more so write-off for Monaghan. They got relegated from Division 1. It's all about preparing for Division 2, because Division 2 is going to be tough next season to get straight back up. So yeah, that's going to be crucial for Monaghan in the next few years, and getting these young players, the likes of Sean Jones and Killian Levin, a lot more confidence than they have got this year. So it's a big one for Monaghan in that standpoint. For a result in getting this game, maybe not so, because Meath and Louth, even for this season, Monaghan still would fancy their chances of beating those sides, especially being Meath, a neutral venue, and Louth in Clonus. I think Monaghan should win those games. And Kerry, I think they might just write this off and say this is a loss before the ball's even thrown in.
Yeah. I would give Louth a fair chance now, in fairness, but probably leave that for a discussion for another day. I would go with Kerry, I think, fairly comfortably. I think 6 point win is what I would go for there. Mayo versus Cavan. Obviously in Group 2, Cavan, obviously without Paddy Lynch, which I think is going to be a huge blow for them. Mayo coming in on the back of obviously that defeat to Galway. Like looking at this group, I mean, Mayo obviously have to go to the Hyde. They have to play Dublin in a neutral venue as well. It's going to be tough for Mayo if they want to win the group. You feel like if they are going to win the group, they need to win this game at a bare minimum. And to be fair, if Mayo weren't to win this game, especially with Cavan without Paddy Lynch, and I know Cavan have done very well this year, Raymond Gallagher has brought them on leaps and bounds, you would get worried a little bit for Mayo if they weren't to come through this.
I'd be extremely worried if they don't. And I think it's not that Cavan are a bad team. I just think Paddy Lynch is a colossal loss. Like, I think he's the 4th top scorer already in Championship 2024. To lose that amount of scoring out of your team, how are Cavan going to recover? Like, it's going to be interesting to see that. Interesting to see who actually goes on the freeze. There's a few Cavan fans that are saying on social media that Tiernan Madden could actually go on the freeze for them on Saturday. Remains to be seen. Will he be the guy to step up to the platform for them? Who will step up from open play? Will it be Oisín Brady? Will it be a few others other than that? Will it be Dar McVitie, who's still a decent centre forward? It'll be interesting to see that from Cavan's standpoint. But from Mayo, at home against a team that just lost their scorer in chief, you'd imagine Mayo have to win this. If they do not win this, I'd be extremely worried for Kevin McStay's side, because there was a lot of criticism after the Connacht final, and if they lose this game, the criticism will only just get worse. It's not going to get better. So, like, it's going to be interesting to see how Mayo actually attack this game. You would imagine they win this game against the Cavan side there without Paddy Lynch, but this isn't like Monaghan from a Cavan point of view. It is a bit as if they've lost their confidence. Like, they should have beat Tyrone on any other day after extra time. They beat Monaghan by 6 points. They got close to Donegal in the league. Cavan are not a bad side, but I just feel the loss of Paddy Lynch is colossal for them. I think Mayo should win this game, but I think it'll be under 5 points.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, I could see Cavan giving it a real go, and I nearly wouldn't be surprised if this was a draw or Cavan were to really make a game of it. But you think like if they had Paddy Lynch, you'd give them a fair chance. But without him, that is a huge loss. And I know there is more to Cavan, in fairness. Like, Pádraig Faulkner has been excellent this year, in fairness, but I just can't really see Cavan pulling it off. And I think Mayo at home, after, like, you feel like Mayo's season hasn't really kick-started yet. Like, they had some good moments against Galway, in fairness. I don't think they were great against Roscommon. They got over the line that day. Their league's been very up and down, so you're kind of waiting for Mayo to click at some point. And to be fair, they probably are waiting until, All-Ireland quarterfinals or preliminary rounds, or possibly even the Dublin game, before we really see their peak. So yeah, I'll go with Mayo as well. I think I'll go with a 4-point win there. And then last but not least, from the group stage games, Clare versus Cork. Look, it was all positivity about Cork earlier in the show, talking about the hurlers and everything else. But unfortunately, I'm going to burst the bubble now, because I actually fancy Clare to win this game.
Great minds think alike, because I actually think Clare will win this game as well.
Wow.
Yeah, look, I just feel like, yes, Cork performed well against Kerry, and they shackled David Clifford well. Brian Hurley was on form and things like that. Chris O'Jones has been in form all year. Conor Corbett has turned the forward line. This is the same Cork team that lost to Louth and Cavan in the lead, though. This is why we're predicting. And if before Cork fans go after us and things like that, that's the reason why we're backing against Cork here, because of the inconsistencies there within this team. So, and as well as that, Clare weren't a disgrace against Kerry. They were really, really good, and they provided a lot of attacking input into the game. Iki Oguaru was really good for wing back. Dermot Coughlin, really impressed with him at centre forward. And Aaron Griffin as well from corner forward, who's got a lot from play in both league and championship, 121 to be exact, across league and championship, which is really, really impressive from him. There is I can see Cork winning this, and I do think Cork have better players than Clare. But I think Clare have better team mentality. I think Clare will win this game, especially in Ennis, especially with the crowd behind them. I think, and it's a crucial game for both sides as well, because whoever loses this, you could wave your championship dreams goodbye. You're out of the championship. So I think this will be a crucial game for both sides. Who will be up for it more, though? Who will recognise the danger more? I think it'll be Clare. And I think Clare will win this game in the end in Ennis. I said it when the group draw was made, that if Cork don't beat Clare, they should be in the All-Ireland series because of Clare being in Division 3. I stand by that point. But I think Clare are going into this game more and better, a better form book than Cork are at this present moment in time. But I think Clare will win this game.
Yeah, do you think, though, at the same time, though, there has to be, like, surely Cork will have learned from the lessons of obviously losing to, as you said before, losing to Louth and Cavan. We saw this previously. They lost to Clare last year. So you feel like at the same time, like Cork, when you match up with Clare, and Clare obviously have a good amount of young lads in the side this year with Emmett McMahon, and obviously you have Dermot Coughlin in there as well. So you would expect Clare, or you would expect Cork surely to have learned from that last year. And surely there will be a lot more alert, and there will be more of a response, because like there is a massive opportunity here for Cork. Like I do think Tyrone are beatable as well. Like I don't think it's, I think you win this game. I'm not sure you play after that, but I think Tyrone are beatable. Look, Donegal will be tough, but like there is an opportunity here for Cork. Like I think in terms of the group, they probably nearly would have asked for this. In fairness, they probably would have wanted either Clare or Louth to be the second seed. So like it's a massive opportunity for the Rebels. In fairness.
Yeah, it is, and like it is a crucial game for them. And it's a question: if John Cleary's team aren't up for this, like why in the All Ireland? Simple as. So, like I do think Tyrone are beatable, but then again, Aaron, it goes down to confidence. If they lose against Clare, I don't think that this team is capable of beating Tyrone. Simple as. So, like, it all right in this game. All right in this game. And as well as that, Clare have games against Tyrone in Oma and Donegal in a neutral venue, which will probably be, I don't know, Castlebar or someplace. So Clare have a tougher 2 fixtures than Cork do. Cork only have to play in Páirc Uí Rinn against Donegal and Tyrone in Portlaoise or Tullamore. So, like, I think Clare have a lot more riding on this game than Cork do as well. I think that might bring it to the pitch on Saturday. I think Clare will win this game as well. So, but I'm actually shocked, Aaron, because this game out of the 4 has the most, I would say, jeopardy lying on it, and it's not even shown anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm kind of shocked at that. So, but look, that's a discussion for another day. That's TV deals and GAGO and stuff like that. We're not getting into that, thankfully, in this pod. But yeah, I think Clare will win this game. I think they'll be more up for it. I think Mark Fitzgerald will want to stamp his authority in his first year. And I'm going to say Clare will win it.
There we go. I'm surprised by that, because I thought with myself predicting Clare to win it was a bit of a curveball prediction. Like, I thought there'd be a bit more positivity around Cork, especially after giving Kerry such a good run in the semi-finals of the Munster Championship. But as you said, we have seen this numerous times with Cork down the years, and especially with how well Clare played. Like, I do back them just to narrowly get through. I think home advantage is absolutely key, in fairness. Moving on to the Tailteann Cup and looking at Group 1 first of all. So we've Waterford versus Kildare. I think we're both backing Kildare to win that one quite comfortably. We don't really need to get into that in much detail. But Longford Leitrim, like, this is a game that does have big implications on it. Leitrim obviously with 2 points on the board so far. You just feel like it's not really clicking for Paddy Christie and Longford. Seeing on social media a few Longford fans starting to lose patience with Paddy Christie at the helm. Do you get, like, it's a hard one to call. Like, I'd probably nearly go for a draw here, to be honest.
Yeah, it is, especially with Longford being at home in this one. Would you back Longford or Leitrim in very good form at the moment? To be fair, Waterford could have even beat Leitrim the last day. They only lost by 5 points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't want to be boring and go with the same result as you are, and I'm not going to say a draw because that's a cop-out.
I mean, you can go to a draw if you feel it's a draw.
There's no gun going to my head here, but I'm going to go Longford. They're at home. I'm going to go for Longford to win this one. They do have some very good players like Joseph Hagan and all them. So, yeah, I'm going to go for Longford, but this will be a tight one to call, no doubt about it. And as for the other game, self-explanatory, Kildare will win that one. But it'll be interesting to see how Waterford perform, especially at home to Kildare. A Kildare team that in some aspects of this season have been devoid of confidence. Can Waterford pounce on that? Be interesting to see.
There we go. Yeah, I think I will go to draw in fairness, but look, I do think could go either way. Like, Leitrim probably going in with slighter confidence, having been promoted and everything else. Like, Longford's recent results, even towards the end of the league, the battering versus Wexford, and obviously the result last week as well wasn't too good against Kildare. Like, it was an absolute hammering, in fairness. Group A, you've got Tipperary versus Sligo and Wexford versus Antrim. Like, I mean, Sligo should be Tipperary fairly comfortably. Tipperary will have Conor Sweeney back. They do obviously have Conor Sweeney back now. He played the last time out against Antrim, which gives them a bit of positivity. But Wexford versus Antrim is an interesting one. Like, Wexford coming in with good form there, like, gave Sligo quite a good run for their money. And Antrim, you never know what you're going to get with them at the best times under Andy McEntee. So what would you be thinking here?
Wexford, Antrim, I'm going to go for Wexford. They're at home. I think they're in better form than Antrim at this present moment of time. And yeah, I think Wexford should win this one. Sean Nolan's in very good form for them. You've others, Glenn Malone at the wing back position. I have to ask this question to Wexford fans that are watching this. Glenn Malone, is he actually a defender? Because he seems to score like 1-2 nearly every single game, and he plays at the number 7 position. He probably just roams around the field or something of that nature, but he's a very good player. Definitely want to watch in this Tailteann Cup campaign. So, yeah, I'm going to go over Wexford to win that one. And as for Tipp and Sligo, yeah, I think Sligo should win that game comfortably. And as for Tipperary, look, and it showed the last day as well. I know Conor Sweeney was the top scorer last weekend out of all the games in the Tailteann Cup last week with 1-7, but they rely too much on them, don't they, Aaron? They rely too much on Conor Sweeney, Sean O'Connor if he's on form as well. So that's a worrying sign for Tipperary. So I think Sligo could win that quite comfortably.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think Sligo should be too strong. And I would go for Wexford as well. I think they're coming in with huge momentum at home in Wexford Park. I'd fancy them to get the job done there. Group 3, Carlow versus Fermanagh and Wicklow versus Laois. Fermanagh should be Carlow, but Carlow gave a good account of themselves against Laois, in fairness, with those 2 late goals, obviously, to dig out a draw. And Wicklow-Laois is an interesting one as well. Like, I mean, Wicklow had a good championship or Leinster championship, I felt, against beating Westmeath, and obviously giving a good account of Kildare. But when you look aside from that, like, you feel like the Wicklow that played in that Leinster championship is an entirely different Wicklow to what we saw in both the league and in the Tailteann Cup. So you'd fancy Laois, to be fair, to probably edge Wicklow. But what would you think?
For sitting the Fermanagh Carlow game, I think Carlow will make it hard for Fermanagh. I think Fermanagh will get over the line. I think they did stamp their authority on the competition last week against Wicklow, scoring 3-16. But I think Carlow could give them a right old test, but I think Fermanagh should win that comfortably in the end. And Wicklow against Laois. Wicklow at home.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say Wicklow. Antrim's a fortress. I'm gonna go for Wicklow to win this one. And Laois, I think the game against Carlow, they'll be absolutely kicking themselves after that result last week. How on earth did they let a 7-point lead slip? Like, it was unreal at the best of times. So yeah, I'm gonna go for Wicklow to win that one. Might be a bit of a shot, but there you go.
Yeah, you have two Armagh managers going up against each other as well, so should be an interesting one. But I am going to go for Laois, I think, to edge it. And then in Group 4, Limerick versus Offaly, London versus Down. I suppose last week when we were running through these games, it was London versus Offaly and it was Down versus Limerick, and we both kind of dismissed them very, very quickly. And to be fair, Down did beat Limerick quite comfortably, as we very well know. But London went and turned over Offaly and beat them by, 20 points. I mean, that was an absolute hammering, and certainly one that we didn't see coming. So can London do anything against Down? Like, we'd probably back Offaly to beat Limerick, but what do you think?
Backing Offaly to beat Limerick. I know Limerick are on a very bad losing streak at the moment, but Offaly would have been devoid of confidence after last week.
I think there has to be a response, though. There has to be surely a response.
There has to be, yeah. But at the same time, this was the same Limerick team that nearly beat Offaly in the league.
Yeah.
So I think might be my second shot prediction. Yeah, there has to be a response. So yeah, right. Flip it on going Limerick. I think Limerick will beat Offaly and end that losing streak. I think Limerick will win that game. And down in London, brilliant result for London last week to get that win over Offaly. Not just win them, batter them. 14 points. Like, that was an incredible result. Even though I think Down should have enough. And I think that's self-explanatory. Down are the favourites for this competition for a reason. And I think Down should win this comfortably, in all honesty.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was an incredible 14-point win for the men from London, in fairness. But yeah, I think I would back Down to come through that quite comfortably. Before we finish up then, player of the week, bet of the week from both football and hurling. I suppose you've thrown in a few outside predictions there, so we probably have your bets of the week already. But in terms of one to watch or players of the week, what would you be looking towards?
Ones to watch in hurling, probably Conor Burke, Dublin. I think he has the capacity to do well in that midfield against Kilkenny. In football, ones to watch, I think Sean Kelly from Galway. It'll be interesting to see where he actually plays on Saturday. So that's just not one to watch, but one to watch in terms of an interesting kind of standpoint, not a standout, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think for myself, like in Derry Galway, I'd look at Kieran McFall maybe to have a big game there. You're looking at the obvious ones like Shane McGuigan and whatnot, but I think Kieran McFall could have a huge game there as well, in fairness. Then looking at the hurling, yeah, it is a tough one. Like, from a Dublin perspective, you would be looking at Conor Burke, Donald Burke, absolutely, but I think Owen O'Donnell could be absolutely huge, like playing a fullback, potentially picking up TJ Reid as well. Like, what an absolute battle that would be. So probably go with Owen O'Donnell there. In terms of bet of the week, yeah, look, Clare Cork, I suppose, is a bit of an outside shock. And then in hurling, I think the big one really, if I was to look at a bet or was to look at a surprise, I probably would go with Dublin Kilkenny Just I know Kilkenny are favourites, but or I know Dublin are coming in good form, and maybe Kilkenny aren't huge favourites, but I would probably look towards that in fairness. But yeah, look, we'll wrap this up here, I think. We've certainly discussed a lot there in both football and hurling. So anyone who has tuned in, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, that'd be very much appreciated. As I said before, big thanks to anyone who tunes into the show. Big thanks, obviously, for 5,000 subscribers. And the road to 6,000 begins here. So if anyone has any questions or anything of that nature, feel free to get them in the comments below. And we'll do an Q&A maybe at some point over the next couple of weeks. So, Matthew, cheers very much for coming on the show. And anyone who tuned in, we will speak to you all in the next one.